We're going to get stuck into the 2,000 guineas first of all. We'll start with a recap of the last 10 winners of the race. Most recently, obviously, notable speech going back to Glen Eagles in 2015. George, who's your sort of best Guineas winner on that list?
I thought Churchill was very impressive. It was a great horse, and I thought Notable Speech last year was awesome. One of the reasons was I fancied him massively and I backed him ante-post, so that's probably clouding that view slightly.
Martin?
I thought it was QIPCO. He broke the track record, didn't he? And it was a year when jockeys were carrying a few extra pounds as well during COVID, so he broke a track record, carrying more weight than any other Guineas winner before. I thought that was impressive. Yeah,
I thought he was very good. It's sort of like one of those horses that he gets a bit forgotten about, but he was a very good horse.
Yeah, exactly, and he's making a good stallion as well. Yeah, I think you're right. He was overlooked a little bit.
The betting for the race this year, and we've got the line in winter, the 5-1 market leader as things stand with Betfair, expanded there at 8-1, Shadow of Light at 10-1, Ruling Court at 12s, 14s Twain, 16-1 then Henry Matisse, and Ides of March and Cosmic Year, and then it's 20-1 and bigger the rest. So it's a really open heat. Sometimes you go into the winter and you've got a clear standout favourite for the Guineas. That there isn't really that horse this time around, but the line in winter, unblemished record to this point, 2 from 2. His latest win coming in the Acomb, and he's definitely, you would think, going to progress from 2 to 3 given his pedigree, and he's going to want at least a mile, isn't he?
Yeah, I think a mile's going to be fine for him. I just love the way he went through the race this day. He's very straightforward tactically. Obviously, it was gutting we didn't get a chance to see him in the Dwyer, because I think if he'd gone there and answered those questions, he'd be everyone's sort of pick, really, wouldn't it, if he'd won the Dwyer. But on this occasion, he'd be a really well-hyped horse in Ruling Court, who was very impressive on debut, of Charlie Appleby's in third, and Wimbledon Hawkeye's done nothing to sort of worsen the form.
He's won a Group 2 next time.
He's a really good yardstick, so I think he's a really likeable type, and he looks the pick of Aidan's team, doesn't he, really? He's got a big team to go to war with for it, but he was ultra impressive on that occasion, and it's just sad we never got a chance to see him in the Dwyer.
I think he's the kind of horse that would want the race to be a test mark in the Guineas this year, in that pedigree-wise he's going to get beyond a mile. It's going to be the minimum end trip-wise of what he wants, and Aidan's horses tend to just stay. They're very well conditioned, and he just looks like he's going to want an uncomplicated race. I love the way that he strode out at York. He's got a long-looking, useful stride on him.
Well, he's a horse that ticks a lot of boxes already, and he's got so much potential. He hasn't proved himself at Group 1 level yet, but he beat a horse that went on to win a Royal Lodge. But what he did do at York that day, he did it differently. He broke from a low draw. I remember on the track we were a bit concerned. It was a big field. That's 7 furlong on that track at York. They're over on top of you quickly, but Ryan rode him positively from the front end, and he'd improved so much from his first run. And like you say, going into the Guineas, every year you go into a Guineas, there's always horses that are suspect stayers at a mile, and he definitely will not be suspect, and he looks so versatile tactically. Ryan could ride on the front end if he so wishes, where a lot of horses don't necessarily know whether they're going to get the mile.
Shadow of Light is going to be a danger to him. He has proven himself not once but twice at Group 1 level. He won the Dwyer. He's been beaten once in a gym crack behind Cool Hoof Luke, but he's got a lot of experience and conditioning into him at this point, with 5 career starts and 4 wins, including those 2 Group 1s, George.
Yeah, it's really interesting because no one thought that we'd see him again in the Dwyer, and they decided to roll the dice and run again when they had Ancient Truth, who looked like it was a natural progression for that horse. And you can just see me race down the middle of the track on this occasion, away from Expanded and Ancient Truth. And I thought it was a really strong performance to win, because when they went past halfway, I don't remember that shot that they showed on ITV Racing that day and Racing TV, that he was well behind those 2 horses, and he had to make his own ground up because he was disjointed from those 2 on the stands rail. He's a really likeable colt, and he's done very little wrong. And I thought when he got beaten by Call of Luke at York, there was little bits of excuses, and he's a high-class horse who was beaten by. So he's a dual Group 1 winner. He's got a high cruising speed, which I think is key on that slick mile at Newmarket. And it's just, me and Martin were talking about in the car, is whether he gets home if it's a truly run race.
That's the question mark. There was a question mark going into the Dewhurst. Obviously, he was supplemented for this race after winning the Middle Park, and not many horses have won both. But he's seen out the 7 furlongs so well there, and I thought it was a big performance.
He ran like a horse that would get a mile at 3 there. Pedigree-wise, you could... You know, Look de Vere gets plenty of quick ones, and it's a fast dam side of the pedigree. So it's an unknown quantity in that regard, isn't it? I think that comes back to the point that I was saying about the Lion in Winter as well. For him, if it turned into a kind of race where they weren't going that quick and a turn of foot was required, he's probably going to be going through the gears a bit more slowly than a Shadow of Light, who's probably got more likely to have some push-button acceleration, isn't he?
Well, I'm guessing, well, George will tell you, from a jockey's point of view, if you're riding Lion in the Winter, you think, no matter what happens, I can sit prominent if they go slow, I can sit further back if they go quick, where the Shadow of Light, William's going to go into the race thinking, well, he needs to settle, and we need to know he's going to see out the mile, so he might have to get cover. So that's the difference, isn't it, going into the race? You know that horse is going to stay, but I think he will, the way he won that. I mean, I don't know what you feel, York. When he was beating the Gimcrack, I thought he was outspeeded. You know what York is like. It's such a quick, level track. And I think he was outspeeded in the middle part of the race. That's why he got beat. I think he'd be even better at a mile Shadow of Light. Yeah,
that was the quickest ground that he'd gone on probably at York. But I don't think he's particularly reliant on any sort of conditions. His last 2 wins, it was slow enough, I suppose. But it was decent ground earlier on the year. He's probably versatile, isn't he?
I think he doesn't want either extreme, to be honest. When you look at him, I think he'll be fine on just nice ground, which you'd imagine that time of year you're going to get, maybe with a little bit of sort of moisture in the ground just because of the time of year. But he's got a lot of speed. I think he got more streetwise with racing. They ran him plenty, didn't they? And I kind of like that profile for a Guineas, because he won't have to be prepped beforehand because they need to get experience into him. He's going to be straight there, and I suppose if he doesn't stay, Charlie said it before, didn't he, when he won his first Group 1, then the Commonwealth Cup will be on his agenda. So he's a pretty easy horse to place, isn't he? He's a dual Group 1 at 2, and it's a nice problem to have.
Yeah, it is. Let's have a look at the betting again and see if there's anything that kind of catches your eye amongst the others. Expanded is in there at 8 to 1. He's a shorter price than Shadow of Light. He was second to Shadow of Light in the Dewhurst, so he's got that bit of form to turn around. But Expanded went into that race with just 1 run behind him, and it was a week before the Dewhurst. So to go from your debut effort 1 week to running in a Group 1 the following week is a big, big ask, and he very nearly did it. So is the fact that there was just a neck between them, given the relative experience at the time, the reason that Expanded is the shorter price of the 2?
I think so, and the key thing to note, and I'm always aware of what horses are rated, he was rated 118 after a second start, which takes a good bit of doing, doesn't it, Chris? Yeah. So, again, he looks to be the second string for sure. The Lion Winter's got a much more attractive profile at the moment, but he's done very little wrong to date. And it's amazing that it was just such a quick turnaround from winning at the Curragh in a maiden to 7 days, as you say, to rock up in a Group 1. So it was a bold shout, but he's Group 1 placed at 2 now, and it wouldn't be a massive shock if he takes a massive step forward for that. No.
Ruling Court is the other one that was there in the market. He was behind the Lion in Winter in the Acomb. He hasn't been seen again since. He was beaten favourite in that. He was sent off even money for the Acomb, but there wasn't an obvious reason as to why he would necessarily verse things, I thought, with the Lion in Winter. But I guess we're now dealing with horses that are a long way down the line since then, so it's things like how they've matured and progressed that comes into the equation.
There's so much that can change over a winter between a horse turning 3 from 2, and they mature differently, and there's look, we're guessing, there's a lot of guesswork. We've looked at the prices there. Expanded, a neck behind Shadow of Light, and he's priced shorter because they're going to go an extra furlong, I guess.
And the other thing with the Guineas, sort of looking at it at this stage, you haven't got much room for anything to go wrong in your prep, have you?
No.
Because
it comes up quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of trainers have said it comes up so quickly. They have to start early spring, and yeah, if one thing's go wrong, it's, you know, it's curtains, isn't it? You don't even run. Yeah,
you're kind of done for. We've seen it numerous times with horses missing their targets. So if you were looking at naming the Guineas winner at this early stage, where would you go, George?
I really like Shadow of Light. I like he's got plenty of experience. I think the miles are not going to be a problem, and I thought he did it. I know people were questioning the 7 furlongs, but I thought he did extremely well to win in the circumstance of the race set up in the Dewhurst. And the difficulty is with it, there's so many horses that have had one run, so you just don't know what they're going to be. And if you think back to last year, Notable Speech had only just started running on track on the weather, so there's still a lot of cards to play from a lot of people. But yeah, I thought myself thought he was a horse to be with.
Martin?
Yeah, I agree. Shadow of Light, I thought he's unbeaten. Good Middle Park winner, and we watched him win the Dewhurst there. And he was, don't forget, he only beat Expanded a Neck, but he was the middle of the track left on his own. He had to come all the way over to race with the horses going better, and he's lost a lot of ground doing that. And William Buick's interview afterwards, if you want to learn anything about a horse, you listen to his interview after the race. I picked up so much from what he said. He thinks a lot of that horse, and he did well to win. I think if he'd have gone to the stands rail with the others, he'd have probably beaten him more comfortable. The question mark is the mile, but I think he'll get it.
OK, we've got a couple of emails in. If you want to send us an email question for either Martin or George in the studio, or one of the trainers that's joining us a little bit later on, then do so. The email address is down at the bottom of the screen there, studio@racingtv.com. Got a couple of emails in, one from Kevin. We'll get to that in a second, Kevin. And we've got one in from Frank from Dublin. Given Aidan O'Brien hasn't won the 2,000 Guineas for 5 or 6 years, but has used it as a stepping stone to the Derby, do you think that Aidan has changed his approach to the 2,000 Guineas?
No. He's still trying to win it. They're not going there half-cocked, they're going there properly prepped. And it's really interesting, Chris. I think it comes quite early in the year, and a lot of his horses aren't having a prep run. And I think it's quite hard to get them ready. He obviously takes them away, but I think it's a lot of horses haven't come to themselves that time of year. Martin would know better than me because he's sort of ridden that sort of class horse more than I would have done. But when you're prepping those horses, one setback, you're under the cosh to get them ready, and they end up being better for that run. So I don't think they've changed their approach at all. They're still trying to win it, but it just hasn't been a natural step. And I don't think, from their point of view, a lot of the time their cards are being played after that. They're really trying to work out what the best horse are at that stage.
OK. Frank adds that he's delighted that you two are on tonight, because apparently you know what you're talking about.
Thanks.
Time anyone said that. Thank you, anyway.
We'll leave it there for now.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.